Hi, this is Uncle Matt's D&D Studio. I'm Matt Finch, and if you play Dungeons & Dragons, and especially old-school Dungeons & Dragons, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, and now we'll move on to the video.
Okay, we're live. And this is Uncle Matt's D&D Studio. I'm Matt Finch. I'm here with both Zach Glazar and with Jason Rocky Gardner. And the person that we're here to talk to is Jason, not Zach. Zach's here to talk with Jason as well. And we're gonna Rocky, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rocky. I'm one of the two founders of Silver Boulet. We started last year in April and put out a few things. Still working slowly, getting more stuff out.
And so that way, I can. And so let me go ahead and do my my introduction thing here. Rocky, there's the Silver Bullets, which of course he mispronounces like everyone else. It should be Silver Bullets, but that's an argument that I have with Tim Kask. Every single year at North Texas, I try and tell him that he pronounces the monster he wrote wrong, and he tells me that he didn't.
I know what he tells you.
You what?
I know what he tells you.
Yeah, he tells me a lot of other stuff too. But so a couple of things. You've got a blog called for your Mega Dungeon called Mord Mar as well. Yep. And so what I want to do is we're going to just move back and forth between the two topics of what you're doing with Silver Bullets and what and then the topic just of Mega Dungeoneering in Mord Mar, because you've got an actual running Mega Dungeon campaign, and there are a lot of people who are curious, even other people who do Mega Dungeon campaigns, always curious about how other people do it when they're gaming in that style.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and I guess tell us first about what's going on with Silver Bullets.
Right now, Ian's finishing up the Orb series, and I'm working on the Silvery Moon Tavern. The Silvery Moon Tavern is kind of a GM's idea toolbox, and we plan on, I've got probably 100 plot hooks in there, a bunch of NPCs fairly fleshed out, and it's just the tavern itself and what goes on inside of a tavern. Ian is working on the Orbs. He's about 75% finished with the last one of that series, so hopefully we'll be seeing that relatively soon as well. He finished up the interior map for the Silvery Moon today, and
I got to see that. I got to see that actually.
Yeah. We use the Dragon Lock tiles and then Photoshop them. It's actually a pretty cool process that makes them look really nice.
Yeah, no, it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
it's the most unique way I've seen mapping done from a publisher in a long time. I think that it actually is pretty slick.
That's actually, I was for Jordan, I was thinking about doing the same thing, but I'm not sure that I could get the pieces to interlock
right
as well as Tom Tullis's stuff does. And of course, if it doesn't interlock particularly well, it's not going to work out well on a map either. So,
yeah, it was a cost-effective measure. We couldn't afford to keep buying maps, so we did what we could to save some money, and it worked out really well.
Yeah. No, so I'm looking forward to that one when it comes out. You guys, are you going to do a Kickstarter for that? How are you going to launch that?
I don't think we're going to do a Kickstarter for it. I'm hoping to just do somewhere between 50 and 100 print copies if I get it in time for GaryCon. Otherwise, we'll just do the PDF again.
How long is it, page-wise?
Should be right around 30 when I'm finished. I'm at about 26 right now.
Okay, well, so that'll work. So that'll work well for a softcover print run. You won't have the issue of binding breaking or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, we're thinking about doing it in the old module format with the separate covers, so we'll see what happens when we get to that point.
Of course, that's a difficulty.
Yep.
Go ahead, Zach.
So I've done that, and I really like it on my shelf. Actually doing it was more challenging, but it was awesome. It's worth it.
That was what I was going to say too. Is that's the logistics of that are really difficult. It's awesome when it works out.
Yeah, getting the cover separate, that's the logistical problem.
Yep. Well, and the other thing is the other thing is figuring out how to handle it when you go to the print on demand stuff, because print on demand can't do that at all. So you've got to handle both sides of it.
Yeah, for now it's more we just want to get it out in time for GaryCon, and we'll look at print on demand probably shortly after that if we get to that point before GaryCon.
Yeah,
that's an easy conversion though. The hard part is doing what you do now. After that's easy. But anyway, that's cool. I think it's a good choice.
Yeah, no, separate covers are awesome. Let's talk Megadungeoneering, Mordmar. I guess first question that I run into on almost any Mega Dungeon, and it's not something that I think is a crucial part of it, but it's always the interesting question, is what's the origin story that gives you a Mega Dungeon in yours?
In mine, the dwarves built a gigantic city, and it was attacked from underneath by orcs and goblins and trolls and all that kind of stuff, and they overran the city. The dwarves fell back to the entrance hold, and they hold that particular position. They've held it for 300, 400, 500 years, but they can't really advance in because there's magic and teleporters and DM fiat to stop them from advancing in.
Mm-hmm. And so that's your character's base in the dwarven area, and then go in, or is it?
And then from there, once they go from that part of the city, the next major part getting into the actual Mega Dungeon is actually a long hallway with teleporters all the way down both sides that completely circles the mountain. So that was my easy way of getting the players in and out of where they wanted to go or I wanted to go, depending on if they find the runes or not, to activate the teleporters.
Yeah,
So,
I do that with. Well, I mean, it doesn't work as well, but I always tell people, put some stairs. Don't do the video game thing where you have to explore forever and ever and ever to find the stairs, because it's easier when you have higher level characters to just be like, we go to these close stairs, then we go to these ones, then we go down to these ones, or even having stairways that go down several levels. Yeah,
that was one of the earliest considerations I made in Mordmar, was you have to have ease of switching levels as characters progress in levels, or if you have multiple groups going through. So there's 3 or 4 different ways to easily from the beginning get to almost any level. Go ahead.
And do you have multiple groups going through?
Not currently. Right now it's more writing than playing. I get to play once a month maybe on it right now. We were doing a Facebook play-by-post for a while, but that fizzled out, and we had a couple of groups going through at that point.
Did you do the thing of trying to have them interact with each other, which never works, or did you?
Not really, but they were. It was a Facebook group, so they could interact as they saw fit in the Facebook group. I didn't really care if they played in character in that or not. But no, I know that when you have multiple groups, you really can't have them interact in the game. They can't, if they run across each other, it's just problems.
Yeah, it's a nightmare to try and it's logistically a nightmare. I mean, I've done it maybe once that it kind of worked out, and it was a lot of fun, but everybody totally had to be understanding of the fact that, that logistically this is just, an absolute spaghetti against the wall, not working kind of gizmo machine, and we'll just play through it, but it was not smooth. We
learned our lesson. We ran a game at Grand Con 2014 where we had 4 groups go through different parts and then meet up at the end trying to get the treasure. And we ended up just having a caller come up and tell us what every action was for their whole group. And that sped it up enough to where we got it finished, but it was lackluster to say the least when it was done.
Yeah, no, I can't. It wouldn't work. I can't see that working with a convention group. Not being their fault, but they don't know each other.
I think that's one of those where actually the reason it's never been done before is because it's so hard. I got that myself when I first did Death of Taxes. Like, I want to make this like a real building. It's going to be like a real architectural building. It was terrible. There are reasons why people don't do things, and I think you guys are both right. The logistics is really hard. And if it's all you ever did, I think it's possible to do it fun, but that would be your only gig, I think. So, yeah. Because play-by-mail guys used to do that, right? Back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
And they all they did was organize those things. So
I mean, because they would put together the letters, and I don't know how they did it, especially given the fact that people were using, Commodore computers and Radio Shack computers and stuff like that to track. You could probably do it now on a computer fairly easily.
Maybe, but it still would be. I think it'd be really hard. I would love to know how they did it, but that's for another time. I just think that's interesting. But but I think the reason you don't see that even I think if it was easy to do, you'd see that like an Adventures League, but you don't because it's hard. So
there are some.
It's hard enough keeping track of 6 to 8 players, much less 15 to 20 or 20 to 30. Even in the Frog God games, you guys have an organizational system that keeps it moving, but when you got multiple groups, you don't have that organizational system.
Well, plus I discovered last time that the top of my capability on the number of people is about 25, and probably I still had the crowd control and the communications thing going, but the group simply had become so large that there were people in the middle who had nothing to do. They were nowhere near the dungeon. They had a sea of people, other people in all kinds of other directions.
15 people in front of me, 15 people behind me. I guess I'll just stand here and wait. And that that becomes no fun.
Right. And so I decided I'm going to try and cull my large expeditions down to about 15 or fewer. I mean, ideally it would be 11, but of course, Bill keeps signing me up for these things and calling up organization, the convention organizers, and say, Matt will handle 15 people plus anybody who walks in. And I'm just like,
I want to clear something up real quick, is that he will tell me to tell the convention organizers, and I will tell them that. So I'm also involved in this chain of things getting you in trouble. So I want to take credit.
So you'll need to be stopping doing that.
Well, you do handle it well, but the realistic part of it is somebody's not having fun when you get over that 15, 16 person. Like, that's just somebody's not able to do anything.
Yeah.
And then they've wasted their time and ticket in what should be a great game for them, but because they're stuck in the middle of the marching order, they can't do anything.
Yeah. And I mean, there's various fixes that I do, but with me, if it once it's up around the 25 zone, even the fixes and stuff, they don't work. So sort of similar to the idea of running multiple groups, is there is a certain group size at which it simply does not work anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the largest group you've taken into Mord Mar?
8, 8, 10, somewhere right in there. And that was in the Pathfinder days, so it was a logistical nightmare.
Oh my God, that must have been.
Yeah,
I'm so impressed.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm impressed too. Let's see. All right, there was something else that I was going to go. I want to go back just to Megadungeons in general and the structural. So you talked first about the structural issue of being able to get to different levels of the dungeon by giving people an area that's basically a transportation hub. Although I guess there's some difference to it.
Exactly what it is.
So in addition to the transportation hub, what other areas do you have that are sort of known areas or that have to do with moving around the dungeon?
Not too far from the original adventures in the Citadel. The Citadel was the first adventure where the king was before he got overrun. If the adventurers keep walking past that, they walk into the great stairwell that goes up and down, and that goes down 3 levels and up 3 levels or something like that. It goes through all what the dwarves controlled before they were overrun. And then I read about Gary having an elevator in Greyhawk, so I threw an elevator in there that randomly appears. And then I have a ghoul carriage that will randomly show up and people can get on it and take them to weird places. And those are the major things that I have that make it easy to move.
Okay, now let's talk. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to talk a little bit about teleportation because
good.
Because it seems to be kind of a crux depending on when you started playing. Undermountain doesn't allow teleportation except for site to site, and I've come to the conclusion that teleportation is important enough where it should be allowed by the players, because again, that's one of those quick and easy ways to get to where they want to go. And Sometimes you've got a DM fiat where, anti-magic zone or something so that they can't get out and they've got to fight the big bad. But teleportation has been an issue for a long time that people argue about, and have come to the conclusion that it works best if you allow it.
Now, why do you say it works best if you allow it?
Again, because you've got to get the players the ability to move where they want to move so they can have the most fun. And teleportation is probably the one thing that players get that allow them to do that without any help from me or writing for me or adding something into the dungeon that allows them to do it. It's their one thing that wizards get that give them all of the agency.
So that leads us to the question that I was actually going to ask before we started on teleportation. So that's a nice dovetail. Because the question is, in a mega dungeon, you mentioned the issue of letting the players go where they want to go. And that's one of the things about a mega dungeon that a lot of people, I think, don't understand, because they think it's an undifferentiated set of corridors and rooms, and how is it that there would be places that you want to go? And in the hands of somebody who's experienced with mega dungeons, of course, there are areas of huge interest as opposed to others. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's all about what the players know, right? So the more information they get, the more they're going to want to go someplace. There might be a demon that keeps hunting down other adventuring parties in the mountain, and they'll be, the heroes of all the other adventures if they go kill that demon. Or they might hear about a dragon's hoard that has more treasure than anything else in the mountain to date. Or they're looking for a particular magic item to help wake the princess up from a deep sleep. It's all about being able to give them clues to where they want to go and what their characters want to do. If their characters are fleshed out, you as a GM can give them options that they'll enjoy as players and characters.
And so that's an information process there that goes on, and then also there's the interest in places that they've already been because they have names, like you talked about the Citadel. Being the sort of the starting point, and then you've got the staircase that goes up and down. But what you said about that was this was the area that the dwarves used to control, so it's like a known area.
Yep.
And then you've got other stuff. So what areas have your characters sort of found that are interesting, or that they talk about? One
of their favorites is in actually the dwarven area, there's an angel and a demon locked in combat, stuck in time. They're like statues, but you can tell that they're living creatures. There's a couple of daggers sticking in that bubble too that are just sticking in the air from where the players were like poking in and seeing what would happen. And they really like going back there and trying to figure out how to break that spell. There's an aboleth layer with something above it it's a telepath of some sort. They haven't actually gotten up there yet because the aboleth is below, and then there's something above it, and there's a big hole above the aboleth layer, and they know that something's up there because they can hear its thoughts, but they haven't get up there yet. There was a minotaur statue that chased them around for a long time that they had to go back to and destroy the base of the statue so the minotaur would stop reanimating and coming after the wizard.
Oh, that's cool.
How hard is this for you to, in case your players watch this stream, not give anything away? I bet there's things you'd like to say that are interesting, but you're afraid that it might ruin it for a game that's been ongoing for a long time.
It's not that tough. They have a lot of this information already. So most of it, and I don't write too far ahead of them. I find out where they want to go and make sure that that's taken care of. And then I've got some other stuff off to the sides that they don't know about yet, but it's not that difficult. Like I said, I've been running it on and off since 2012, so there's a lot of information out there about it that they have.
Well, I'm usually bloviating on either publisher stuff or the things that have already been published and been played in, but ongoing games to discuss it on a live stream was interesting to me because I think that it kind of changes, or convention game you're going to have coming up, it kind of changes what you can say and how you can promote it, I would think. And that's just
right. It does. And luckily right now I'm not playing it a lot, so I don't have to worry too much about giving away spoilers. Just with the writing and work, we get time maybe once a month to play. So if I say something I shouldn't, then I'll just write up something else.
And I think that, again, sort of switching back and forth, because a lot of people watching this are Mega Dungeon fans, and some people who are watching it, it may not be either their cup of tea, or they may not be familiar with how it's done, or the gradations in terms of doing it with problems as opposed to doing it well. But one of the things I think that talking to the audience here is that this is very characteristic, at least in my experience, of the good Mega Dungeons, is that there are places. So, for example, I mean, Rocky's talked about, the Aboleth Lair and so on and so forth. In Castle Greyhawk, Gary Gygax's dungeon, there was a thing called the Enigmatic Stone Face of Greyhawk, and it was just a stone face, and no one ever figured out what it did, unless that's happened after the point in time, when I heard about that. And so that was a long-standing mystery there. In my campaign, a lot of people, first of all, they like the process of saying how they get from the entrance to the elevator room, because they do it. It's become a tradition to almost do it really, really fast. We go the 60 feet down, we turn left, we avoid the pit trap, we go and they do that whole description. And then every year there's at least one person who wants to go visit the Bizarro tree. And so it's there's even an aspect of sightseeing to it. Let's, this year we're in the dungeon. Let's go back and look at that thing that was interesting. And so that's characteristic of good Mega Dungeons, I think, is that there are defined locations in there that people will want to go to. There will be an objective. If you have a Mega Dungeon that does not have objectives in it, then it does become just a spider web of undifferentiated corridors, and that's boring.
Yeah,
Rocky, I have a question for you, Rocky. Do you if they haven't been somewhere in a while, do you repopulate? Do you change it? Do you make things happen because they haven't been there, or also related to things they've done somewhere else? I mean, I assume it's organic and it's always happening, right?
Yeah. It's something I talked to a few people on Facebook about this a couple weeks ago. In a Mega Dungeon, you have to have factions in order to make it interesting. You have to have the orcs pitted against the gnolls, the goblins pitted against whoever, the kobolds doing what they do, and the parties have to be able to interact with them and use them in ways that aren't typical hack and slash. They have to, convince the orcs to go attack the gnolls so that they can get through to this particular place where they need to pick something up. They've got to use those resources in different ways in a Mega Dungeon than you do in a typical adventure.
And so, and Zach, your question was about repopulating, right?
About repopulating or changes in the actual, the story feel or the actual situations that are in places as a result of what's happened with the party, like 3 levels down, or something's been killed and that was related to either factionally or some kind of link, something either higher up or further down that they've been seen but hadn't been to in a while, and then they go back expecting it to be cleared out or to be still friendly or whatever, and it isn't. That's what's curious.
I haven't run across that yet, but that is something that I plan on doing. They really don't. They go back and revisit a few things here and there, but they're all fairly straightforward paths to get to them. There's one thing that they did do that changed the Mega Dungeon was the goblins in the Citadel come through a mirror that only things with goblin blood can do, and they ended up trading that goblin mirror to a green dragon that happened to like eating goblins. And so that changed around a lot of what happens in the Citadel. Nothing is moved back.
That's awesome. Goblin warm,
Yeah, the Citadel is still cleared out right now just because they haven't gone back, and I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to put in there yet, because as I'm, that's stuff that I've done, so it's stuff that Goblins of the Citadel and Denizens of the Citadel are 2 of the things that I've actually produced and published for Mordmar. in the PDF format on Silver Boule. So, I haven't really
How do people get to Silver Boule too? Because I mean, y'all are not at this point large yet, so there may be some people who aren't familiar with it. If they want to take a look at your product catalog, how do they get there?
We're on RPG Now. We've got a Silver Boule page on Facebook, and we have a Silver Boule group on Facebook. So I don't think we've done anything with Google yet, with Google Plus, but that's coming too.
Okay,
you're
starting
a blog for it.
Okay, but for people who are like, I want to go see the catalog of products that I can buy after watching the video, that's going to be through RPG Now.
Me?
Yes.
I'm having some problems here.
Okay.
Oh, it's moving again. There we go. Try again.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the link. It sounds like the link for somebody who wants to go and look at a product catalog is going to be RPG Now. So I'll put that link. If you'll message me on Facebook and give it to me, and I'll put that down in the description below the video. So so that's the contact stuff on Silver Boule, and it's where people can find it. You've done some stuff from Mordmar. Say again which areas of Mordmar it is that you got out?
Just the Citadel. I did the first part of the Citadel, which was called Goblins, and then after the Goblins are defeated and they figure out what they're doing with the Goblin Mirror, there's a second part where you actually can go up the stairs. The doorway is opened up above, and you can explore further up into the Citadel with the second one.
One of the problems I've always had with publishing Megadungeons or writing them for publication, and generally I think it's easier than writing a smaller adventure, but the problem that I've always run into is the edges, because they've got no edges. And so as a result of that, it's kind of like, well, where do we stop writing here for this publication? How do you establish the borders?
Well, with that one, it's pretty easy because it's just the Citadel. So I did a couple of, they fight a couple of goblins on the way and a couple of rats on the way, but then they go into the Citadel, and then when they're done at the Citadel, the adventure's done. And again, those teleporters come in handy because I just have the king had an emergency teleporter rune hidden somewhere in the throne room, and if they find that, then they're teleported right outside of town. So
it was the way that you wrote it up was with a mission behind it. It wasn't just here's the mega dungeon for you to run as a DM that doesn't like to make your own mega dungeons but wants to play in one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're just a couple of modules right now, and I've kind of long term. I expect that that's how Mordmar will grow. Like eventually I'll have a source book out, and then I'll expand on it with modules.
What are you going to do in the source book? I mean, is that sort of for the thing in general, or?
It'll be, probably the main level, the actual city level, an overview of the other stuff, the people and places in the Varney, the city that their base is in, that kind of thing. And then, there's a few of those major points, the angel and demon stuck in time, that kind of thing. Some major NPCs.
Now you just ran us right into another question that I always think is interesting, because you talked about the city they're based in. How close to the city is the Mega Dungeon? Because people do this all kinds of different ways.
Actually, the idea when I started Mordmar was the city was going to be inside the dungeon. And it's literally at the edge. Like you walk 15 feet outside of town and you're in that teleporter hallway, and you've got an hour walk before you hit the Mega Dungeon.
That's about the way that I'm doing the one, the Jordiba campaign is also that it's very, very close to the city, because part of that is just that since it's run mostly with swords and wizardry, original D&D, it's real easy to die in between a dungeon entrance and a settlement if there is too much distance between the two of them.
Yeah, it is, especially at those lower levels, or you've gone too deep and you're just trying to get home. Like going too deep and trying to get home is a nightmare. You got bandits and all kinds of other stuff that I know that they were written into Castle Zagig, for example. There's bandits that are around that'll attack you. Greyhawk, they did a lot of the same stuff. So keep it close, and they don't have to worry so much about that lethality at the end of the game.
Yeah, which I think is one of the. I think generally when people put the mega dungeons right next to settlements, I think that's generally what people have in mind. Can you think of another reason why people would make that decision about where to locate the mega dungeon or not? Because there's certainly a lot of flavor if you have to travel a little bit there.
Yeah. Just logistically, it might be easier. You don't have to roll random encounters. You don't have to have a hex map, that kind of thing. But gameplay-wise, it's just the best reason I see is to make sure that they don't die when they've gotten the treasure and gotten out.
Yeah. Zach, I am sure that you are sitting there with some sort of boilingly interesting question about mega dungeons. What are your thoughts here?
My thoughts are actually, sadly, go straight to, if you're going to sell this in like pieces, or you're going to put this together to be available, how do you define like what makes a good length or chunk? Like what's included in pieces that you could actually repurpose? I mean, I know Barrel Maze is one of my favorites, and Michael Kurtz's Stonehill Dungeon I really enjoy. One is much longer than the other and with shorter descriptions. I mean, what kind of challenges do you think about when you think about spreading this to other people besides your home campaign?
Again, those major set pieces, those are the types of things that pique people's interest. They're the ones that, I want to pull this out and use it in my place. I can't think of any in particular right now that I would be pulling out, but those major set pieces are what always bring people back.
But around like a concept, not like around like location or size. So it'd be situated around the aboleth layer, for instance, that you're talking about, or around the where the Goblin Mirror was originally. So it's based on what's in it as opposed to how big it is or where it's located.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. People are going to pick things out that they want for their themes that fit their themes. So I think more the encounter itself is what they're looking for, because they're going to figure out what their theme is. If it's loneliness or it's isolation or whatever, they're going to find an encounter that works for whatever theme they're going with.
Of course, what you're talking about there is really more in the nature of a Mega Dungeon source book, although it's still taking the fact that many people will buy a Mega Dungeon and use it that way. It's the way that people used Undermountain and all of the ones that people will use it that way. But what about the idea of the guy who wants to try out? Here's an interesting thought. Okay, guy wants to try out a Mega Dungeon because he's been seeing all the more modern stuff where things are generally mission based for various reasons that I won't go into, but there's not a whole lot of Mega Dungeon adventuring being done in the later editions right now. If somebody wanted to try that, what would that product look like that would be an introduction to Mega Dungeons? Which I might write just now, because that's a really awesome idea. But okay, let's go back to it.
The Mega Dungeon that I would recommend a starting person pick up is the Grand Temple of Jing. Honestly, that thing is amazing. Even though it's written for Pathfinder, Pathfinder is difficult for me to run these days because I'm so used to running the early stuff. But he has so many good ideas between the statues that you can pay money to level up or do whatever with. There's just so many interesting things in that Mega Dungeon that a new player or a new DM can latch onto and make their own.
I'm not even familiar with that. Who
Check
wrote
it out.
that?
No, I have no idea. He's on Pathfinder, right?
What's that?
Who published it? Who wrote it?
Yeah, it's a good one. I don't think I grabbed it when I came down. No, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you.
Okay. Y'all talk. I'm looking this up real quick here.
Yeah, it's good. I haven't actually played it, but I'm anytime I see a Mega Dungeon I don't have, I pick it up so that I can just look through it and see. Like, you're always mining for ideas from everything you get if you're a DM, right? So
how do you spell Zing? TS?
Jing. Yeah.
Well, that's an expensive thing to start picking up. I mean, it's one thing to collect like short missions-based modules or PDFs, but some of the Mega Dungeon ones can get very expensive. And I like them because I find them to be compelling, just the intro parts, because they're so different.
Yeah.
And so
and every single one of them is different. And
Okay,
yeah, they can be
so
expensive.
what I'm
You can-
seeing here, just for the people who are also not familiar with this, it looks like the levels were split up because we've got, it says levels by Jonathan Tweet, Monty Cook, Skip Williams, Ed Greenwood, Jim
Well, I
Ward.
never heard of them. Oh no.
Yeah, right. So that, and I'm not seeing who published it. Was it Paizo? Wait, here we go. Publisher, Hammerdog Games.
Yep.
I'll have to go and look for that. Okay, thank you, Jason. That is a new piece of interesting thing to look up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now
And
I
that
buy
one-
it probably. Great.
Yeah, I know. I think you probably just made 2 sales with me and Zach too. So, all right, audience. You just saw Jason make 2 sales for Hammerdog Publishing. Go to the Silver Bullets page. At least 2 people and buy his stuff.
Yeah, I collect Megadungeons. Like I said, I'm always mining them for information. And like Undermountain was the first one that I ever played back in '91 when I first started playing D&D. So it's near and dear to my heart. And it has a lot of great information. The little cards that came with it, with all the traps and the different doors and that kind of thing. That one's great. But as you move forward, in time, you see the Megadungeons kind of get refined a little bit, where Undermountain was just this huge space that was wide open with, 200 encounters in the whole box set. Then you get to something like Barrel Maze or Rappahathic, where everything's mapped out and you know exactly what's in every room. It's just kind of a fascinating study in history, just watching them move forward.
Which is funny because I don't consider Rappahathic to be a mega dungeon. I consider it to be something a little different. I'm spending a lot of time in it right now, but I see it more as a compelling place to take parts of the GMs to use than one that's actually played through without master. I see Barrel Maze is somewhere that actually could be done. You go with a group and you can play it.
All right, Zach, your sound
And so
for some reason really sucks.
Just drop.
Your sound sucks.
Okay.
So
Well, quiet.
Well, that's what we were talking about a little while ago, right, Zach? People take those set pieces or those chunks and move them to where they want them from all the Megadungeons. I don't even know that it's that common that people actually play through Megadungeons anymore. I know a few that I read the blogs online, and mine and Matt's at the convention games, but I know of about a dozen being run or so in the whole blogosphere.
yeah, it's an interesting question about Rappahathic, though, because of course Rappahathic did start out as Bill's Megadungeon, but then it was carved up for publication, and then other people wrote parts of it, and then later on, like I came in and I was like, this dungeon needs a way to get into it at low level rather than having to wait until your 4th level to get in. And so I wrote Zelkor's Ferry and the Mouth of Doom entrance, and so it's sort of organically grown. And I don't know whether I agree. I'm not sure whether it fits as a mega dungeon or not, but I think it does. I mean, I think it's got the capability. I mean, what are the aspects of a mega dungeon? I mean, it's that the players go back in multiple times. It's that they set their own objectives for where they're going to go to. That there is not any single mission or storyline to it. What else is characteristic of a mega dungeon that would be used in deciding whether Rappahathic sort of is one or isn't one?
Well, size
matters.
Does it? Well, it's a mega dungeon, so size matters. But does it change over time? That's one that a lot of people think is characteristic of a mega dungeon. Are there factions inside of it? Do people keep returning to it? Does it have those staple locations that people talk about? Those are all characteristics of a mega dungeon.
I think Rappahathic certainly has locations. In fact, that's almost one of the things that makes it not a mega dungeon, is that those locations came from publication, but it certainly has them. And I guess people can chart their own course through it.
Yeah, I think that's super important too. Is there's got to be player agency where they get to figure out where they're going and what they're doing.
Yeah, and I guess if one were to take the approach that Rapid Ethic's not a mega dungeon, the only real reason I can think of for that would be that it's not built into the book how the characters get the information about what's down there. It's not so much set up with people saying, hey, you know what's down this corridor, is goblins that I'd just love to have killed, so why don't y'all go down there? And I don't know, that's probably more an artifact of the fact that it was published in pieces over time than anything else.
Yeah. I wrote a blog about it. I just looked it up about a year ago. My criteria a year ago was it can never be fully explored, has to have a theme. They don't have to show up in every room, but they should show up over and over. They have to have lots of entrances and exits, many areas controlled by factions, and there need to be goals set in the mega dungeon. The players and the GM both should have goals in a mega dungeon, and those were my 5 criteria a year ago.
Oh, that's cool. So you're ahead of me on your whole the beginner's guide to mega dungeons.
Well,
God damn, that's a good title. Zach, write all this stuff down.
Well, I've been blogging about it for several years, so when something comes to mind, I just stick it on there. So, and originally it was just so I didn't lose it, but over time, it's grown into people actually wanting to read what I write.
Yeah, and so that is the Mordmar blog, which is you can find it on Old School Gamer Radio, and like Silver Bullets, I will put the link to where you can go and find Rocky's blog down in the description underneath the video. And I promise that I am working on learning how to do direct links from inside a video. And as soon as I manage to overcome the Neanderthal technological level, I will do that.
Yes, you will.
Hey, that's better sound, Zach.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. With that, I believe we are done unless anybody has any other comments that you want to add based on the pretty cool discussion on Mega Dungeons we had. Zach, do you have anything?
No, I do. I think that one of the things I like most about when like Rocky's blogs, one of the few I've ever highlighted, like on the Frog Gods page, because I think they're actually very thoughtful and something you should check out. And I know that when I see, like, they've showed me some of the maps they're working on for the tavern and et cetera, and I think that it's a great model for small publishers to take a look at, and I definitely would check it out if I was you.
Okay. Rocky, anything else to add?
No, just thank you for taking the time to interview me.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, and I love the topic of Mega Dungeons, and you're one of the people who knows a lot about them. In fact, I may try and find some of the other people that are out there. A lot of the people who wrote a lot about Mega Dungeons have kind of disappeared a little bit from the internet. And then I talked to one guy, and he didn't want to do videos at all. So
yeah.
But I think it would be an interesting set of things to either do a series of people talking about that, or get several of the Mega Dungeon gurus in one place to kind of talk about it. Would be fun.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of them out there. I don't know how much Greenwood does interviews, but you got Benoit out there, you've got Ernie's out there, Greg's out there somewhere. I'm sure there's
Greg I've talked to. We could get you and Greg on one, at least the two of y'all, to talk about that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll look into doing a Mega Dungeon panel on one of the thoughts. That's a cool one.
Hey, we're all going to be at GaryCon.
That's true. Well, we're all going to be at GaryCon, but the people out in the audience aren't necessarily going to be at GaryCon.
I just meant that we'd all be there to be able to record it together.
That's
yeah,
right.
Drunk.
We can live stream it. All the better.
All right, everybody. Rocky, say bye to your fans.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Zach, say goodbye to your fan or two.
Yeah, I myself, so here I am.
All right. And then, I will say to everybody, no matter what sort of Dungeons and Dragons it is that you play, imagine the hell out of it.